Hey athletes, we've got a lot to talk about. We're talking plank variations, we're talking working your core. So, what are we trying to do when we do plank? That's the first thing we always want to answer. Why are we doing this exercise? Well, we're doing this plank exercise, any of the hoppers we're doing, any anti-rotational exercises to do just that. We're trying to control our bodies. We don't want rotation to happen in our hips. We don't want our hips dumping forward, back. We want total core control. We're trying to teach our body how to stabilize our spine without actually using our spinal erectors in our lower back. So let's see what plank needs to look like. Okay, so I only did it briefly just because there's a lot of things in this video we need to cover. With our plank, what we're looking for are a few things. One, our shoulders are just in front of our hands, right? Or right on top of. That's going to set us up with a really nice angle in case we're doing push-ups or whatever the heck we're about to do. But we always want to talk shoulders right over your hands, because as soon as, and you'll see this later, as soon as your shoulders come back, instead of it being in your core, it's going to be in your shoulders, okay? For a lot of people, that's really easy. A lot of newbies, they're going to really try to fade back because it just makes it easier. That's just not what we're trying to do. We do this for a purpose. We want our cores on. I'd rather you go 5 seconds here than 15 seconds or even 5 minutes with your shoulders a little back. Right now, I'm feeling it in my belly, right below my belly button. We call that your transverse core or your transverse abdominis. Now, a few cues, and we'll talk more about this in a little bit, to achieve this position, and I'm talking from our low mid-back all the way up into here. You can see my eyes, I'm looking just out in front, okay? If I crank my neck up and I look straight ahead, that can put a lot of pressure in my neck, and I don't ever want to tuck my chin, because if I tuck my chin and I'm looking behind my hands, when we're doing push-ups, which you'll see in later videos, that can be kind of problematic. So some of the cues that I'll go through is eyes forward, and I like to say, take your sternum, or I'll poke them and say, imagine this is a button, and I'm trying to take that button and bring it in front of my shoulders, okay? Buttons up, you might hear me say as well. Okay, so let's talk what's actually happening at the spine. So again, we're trying to use our transverse core, our transverse abdominis, the front of our core, to stabilize. We don't want our lower backs to do it in this case. So we're trying to avoid any excess extension here, right? If I have an arch in my lower back, that means that my hips are just dumping, okay? That's terrible. They're tucking, and it just doesn't feel good when they're tucking forward. Now, for some people, what can help them is, pull your belly button in or squeeze your butt. But a lot of times, what's going on is, again, the hips are tilting forward. So I will stand up and I'll kind of show them a visual of me like tucking my hips. Or sometimes I can get a little graphic with what I'm actually asking you to do. But essentially, we want your hips to come forward and up, and that'll create a nice line here so that it's nice and flat. Now let's talk faults. So let me hit play. The first thing you'll see is I'm going to let my hips dump forward like we were just talking about. Boom. Okay? Holy cow. Now I'm not breaking the rule of keeping my shoulders where they need to be, okay? Because again, you tell an athlete, hey, keep your shoulders forward, that's what they're focusing on. But man, did I dump my hips. Okay, so with our core, we call it a lower cross. Okay, let's talk lower cross. If my lower back is on, that means that my hip flexors are on. Okay? What we're trying to do is we want our glutes, or at least the upper parts of our hamstring, to turn on so that our transverse core just below your belly button can turn on. So again, I'm activating the wrong half of this lower cross here. Okay, so again, You may hear me say tuck your hips under, and if they're having issues with this, maybe I'll flip them onto their back, they'll do bridge, maybe it's a kettlebell swing, something. We need their hips to go completely the other way. Let's look at some other faults. So before I move on, you see how I quickly tucked my hips? From here, I tuck my hips, it fixes my spine, and then from there I move on to the next fault. And here it is. Boom. Again, this is maybe not so normal. You're not going to see this all the time, but, and it's a little off camera, I'm rounding my upper back, right? I'm pushing through my shoulders too much. And again, I'm crunching my abs, okay? Because if you hear me say core on, you're going to think, well, abs. Kinda. Again, below your belly button. That's where I want that engagement to feel, okay? Now, here you just saw me shift back. Again, we're breaking the rule. I'm still rounded, okay? But my shoulders now went behind my hands. Now again, what that's going to do, and especially when I'm rounding my back like this, it's really going to allow me to put it into my shoulders, my neck a little bit, and maybe even into my triceps and my boobies, my pectorals a little bit. But again, when we're doing plank, we're trying to work on our core stability and control, not any of those muscles I was just talking about. Let's continue on. Fix it. Now, let's go into some variations. So this first one I'm going to do, well, actually any of these, anytime you're moving your legs or your arms or anything like that, we always want to make sure we return to this plank position. My shoulders are at least in front of my hands a little bit. I have a good neutral spine here. My butt's just big so it looks like it's arched, but no. My spine is neutral. I feel it in my little, right below my belly button a little bit. Let's talk fence hoppers. So hopping side to side. Hippity hoppity, hippity hoppity. So the whole time I'm doing this, again, I'm trying to keep, and you can see, I'm trying to keep a neutral spine, trying to keep my hips on, my core on as much as I can, while keeping my shoulders forward. But sometimes, as we get tired and our core starts to burn out, we go backward, right? You'll see this all the time, and sometimes it's very subtle. I was very abrupt when I did it. But my core is still fine, kind of. My shoulders shifted back, right? You're going to see this a lot. Your athletes, as they get a little fatigued, I mean, the human body doesn't want to be uncomfortable. It wants to be comfortable. So it's our job as athletes and as coaches to make sure that their shoulders are right where they need to be and that their lower backs are nice and safe. Other movements. So I fixed it there. Mountain climbers. This happens so often with mountain climbers. As you get tired, you start to shift back. Okay? You need to make sure that you're shifted forward so that everything can be good. And again, and I didn't show all of the variations. If you're lifting an arm, if you're tapping your hip, if you're doing anything like that, again, every time you move your body, you want to always reset your brain, reset your position, especially when we're talking plank, because we want our core to understand how to stabilize and be safe so that the wrong muscles don't turn on at the wrong time. And that's plank and plank variations.